Today we have the fun task of trying to complete a four-part harmony in a minor key. There's a few things we have to be very careful about this. In a minor key, you have to raise the seventh note. So we use harmonic minor. So that means our little example here is in G minor. You can see the way it ends there. There's no giveaway in the melody itself, but you can hear the way it ends on a G. So clearly it's in the key of G minor, which means we have to raise the seventh note, which means we won't just have an F, we will have an F sharp in the dominant chord. You have to be really careful to remember to raise the seventh note, because that's what a lot of people easily forget. And it's just a silly mark you lose where you didn't have to. So be very careful. I'm constantly saying, raise the seventh note, raise the seventh note. All right, so we're going to go through this again, watch the steps. What's the order of the steps? And if you're trying to complete these online, I know that's tricky because when you're filling in bars online, you can only fill them from the start of the bar. But you've got to try to work around that. Because really, when we do four-part harmony, we have to move backwards. So we need to start with the cadences. All right, we've got our chords written up here. So watch the process, and then you can keep to that process as well. All right, what have we got here? We've got A to G. I'm suspecting a perfect cadence here. So A belongs to chord 5 and G belongs to chord 1. So that's the first thing we're going to add here is 5 to 1. We want to complete the bass line of the cadences first. All right, so I've worked out the cadence. Now we need to look at the approach chord. And if possible, if we can work out a first inversion chord and one that's not in a chord that's not in the cadence and moves by step, we would hit an absolute ideal and we'd be very excited about that. So C, what's got a C in it? Well, we could have chord 2. That would work. So chord 2 is not too bad. The contrary motion of those voices is actually pretty good, and even though it's a root position, because if it's a root position chord, you definitely don't want it to be a chord that's in the actual cadence. So here we have D, the dominant chord, going to G minor, the tonic chord. So chord 4 works pretty well. We might see if we can be smart here and use the first inversion, because that, actually I might show you here, this is a perfect time to look for hidden consecutives. Can you see the soprano leaping? It's going from a C down to an A, and here I am moving in similar motion to a fifth. So I would conclude that's hidden consecutives. So when the soprano is leaping, greater than just moving by steps, so it's leaping, and the bass line with the soprano is moving in similar motion to a fifth, oh boy, we're in trouble. Big trouble, because that is hidden consecutive. So in this scenario, actually using just straight chord 4 is going to be fine, because it's not a chord in the cadence anyway. All right, we'll keep an eye on that one. Now let's have a look at the next cadence. So we have C moving to A. So let's see, that's clearly going to be the dominant chord because A belongs to chord 5. So that's going to be, so this is going to be an imperfect cadence. Now we just need to think about what chord we could use. C is in chord 4, so we go 4 to 5. And of course we can't go 2 to 5 because we don't want to use chord 2 in a minor key because it's a diminished chord. So it's one of the main things we need to check. I'll revise those a bit later on. So don't use chord 2 in a minor key. All right, so I won't be using that one. So I think what we'll do is we'll use chord 4 to 5. And my main motivation for that is that they are in contrary motion. So that's a nice strong harmony. You have to be very careful going 4 to 5 6 to 5, because the notes are a step away. The risk of consecutive fifths or octaves is very great. So if you ever just moving 2 chords by step, you got to be really careful. But since we have contrary motion between the soprano and the bass, I think we'll be fine with that. So now an approach chord, ideally, if we can make it a first inversion chord, that'd be really cool. All right, D, what's got a D in it? Well, chord 1, chord 5. Well, chord 5's in the cadence, so we probably want to avoid that one. So I think it could be chord 1, or it could be 1 first inversion. We'll see how that goes. But that would be nice. Chord 1 first inversion going to chord 4. Because it's moving by step, they're in contrary motion. All the good signs we're looking for are here. So I think we should be quite fine with that. First inversion chords are great because they help avoid consecutive fifths and octaves. They're such a useful tool. All right, so we've sorted out our cadences. Maybe I might just indicate here what we're doing so you can see what it is. So what have we got? Chord 1, first inversion, going to 4, going to 5. I use uppercase for major chords and lowercase for minor chords. The AMEB doesn't do that, but that's all right. We just do things a bit differently, but it's just a naming thing, so it's not important. What have we got down here? We've got, what do we decide on? Chord 4, going to chord 5, going to chord 1. Great. Okay, so we've sorted out our cadences. Now let's see if we can complete the bass line. If we get the bass line completed with no consecutive fifths or octaves, then we're ready to add the other voices. Right, now what are we starting with? Well, we have an anacrusis. So typically, we would expect there to be a 5 to 1 in that anacrusis. So we're not in the scenario where we have a note from the tonic chord in the anacrusis. That can happen. You could see G, G, and in that case you could go 1 to 1 first inversion. So we don't have that problem here. We've just got A, which belongs to the dominant chord. So I think we can just do a very straightforward 5 to 1 to start off. Now don't forget with AMEB 4th grade harmony, they're trying to teach you that if you see a 3 to 1 in the melody, you can go 1 to 3 in the bass, or vice versa. So if it was 1 to 3, you could go 3 to 1. I'll put it back the way it was. And the reason for that is that what we're doing is we are using first inversion. So we're going chord 1 to chord 1 first inversion. And it's a useful tool for being able to extend the harmony of a chord. So because we saw the 3 to 1 in the melody, and we know we can go 1 to 3, it ends up being chord 1 first inversion, chord 1 root position to chord 1 first inversion. It's a really useful tool to be able to extend the harmony of a chord by being on the root position of the chord and then moving to the first inversion of the chord. And so you can extend that harmony legitimately because you're still moving the bass line around. You may need some voice exchange, because when you go to first inversion, be careful because you've now got the third of the chord into the bass voice. So there might be some shifting of voices there so you don't double the third of the chord. Another big remember and don't forget, don't double the third, except of chord 6 in an interrupted cadence. And so there, the way you need to do the voices, you will need to you'll end up doubling the third. All right, going good so far. Now, in my opinion, first inversion chords move finely when they move to a root position chord. You can't always pull that off, but it's such a beautiful ideal. And here, because the melody is staying the same, we have a little oblique moment here, which is just beautiful. So chord 1, first inversion going to chord 4, which is really lovely. Now, I could make advantage of my little idea of going from, let's see, we're in chord 4 here. Both of these notes, the G and the C, belong to chord 4. So I could go, I know it's not a 3-to-1, 1-to-3 of the chord situation, but it will work. They're a different interval. There's no consecutives. That's a 5 going to a 6. So there's really no problem there. And it allows me to circle then. I could come to the dominant chord. So that would be really nice, because by this stage we haven't really heard any dominant harmony other than in the anacrusis. So that'll work well. And then more oblique motion here to go from chord 5 down to chord 1, first inversion. That'll be fine as well. That will work well. So that's all good there. We should check. So if I checked the intervals, you go through, that's a 5, D to A is a 5, G to B flat's a 3, B flat to G is a 6, C to G is a 5, E flat to C is a 6, D to D is an 8, B flat to D is a third, C to C is an octave, and D to A is a 5. So no consecutive fifths or eighths. That's all checked. Also, the soprano is leaping, but you see, like, down to a fifth, but you can see here that they're moving in contrary motion, so we don't have any hidden consecutives. So we're all good there. Okay, on with the show. Now, here I probably could make use of chord 1 to chord 1B, chord 1 first inversion. And now what I'm going to try to do is be clever, because I've had to use this root position of chord 4 to get into the cadence. Now I'm going to try and make use of the oblique motion up here, and I'm going to go up to chord 4 and first inversion. So they're both stepping up a fourth, but they're a sixth apart. So there's no problem there. It's really virtually the only similar motion that I have through most of the movement. So that's fine. And then that comes down to the root position. So here we have 1 to 1B, 4B to 4, 5, 1. All right, and G to B flat is third, B flat to G is a 6, E flat to C is a 6, C to C is an octave, D to D is a 5, they're moving in contrary motion, and then G to G is an 8. Now, we're moving in similar motion to an octave, but the soprano is moving by step. So we're fine there. So there's no hidden consecutives. So there we go with the bass line. I hope you see all the checking I'm doing. You have to check everything at every stage. If you don't, you'll miss something. And so it's just getting used to the checking. Now, I'm being very slow and deliberate about this just so that I can take you with me and do all the explaining as I go. But you've got to be used to that. Right, all right, are you ready for this? Let's start and see if we can fill in these other voices. All right, step 1. Is the third of the chord there? No, we've got D to A, we don't have an F sharp. All right, I'm going to see who we could give it to. Let's try the soprano. And then what we would do is then give the fifth of the chord. Now we've got two choices, because we've got the fifth of the chord, of the dominant chord, up there in the soprano voice as well. So I'm thinking maybe we might take advantage of doubling the root note here just to get the tenor voice high. Always keep the tenor voice high. Don't let the tenor get too low, because then you run out of room to move. And when you run out of room to move, you've nowhere to go. Then you have to do awkward leaping. So trust me, try to keep that tenor voice high. That works well for you. All right, so now I think our leading note could rise nicely to the tonic there. Although we'll soon find out what trouble we're in for. Now, why is my stem the wrong way? Let's just stick that up there. Now, I'm feeling good about this because the tenor can literally just move there. Love to see those voices, the inner voices not going anywhere. It's a good look. You know, you've probably got some good ways to move. Now, okay, we've chord 1 in first inversion. Is the third there? Yes, it's down there, so we can't have another one. Now, this might be an opportunity to show you a trick. Now, what am I going to do? Pull the tenor down to there? I don't think I necessarily have to. There's nothing wrong with leaping a fifth. Technically, that is okay. The reason I'm trying to get the tenor out of the way is I can't double the third, so there's no way the tenor couldn't go down to the B flat, for example, because I'd be doubling the third. It could stay on the D. I kind of like the idea of that. And I'm wondering if maybe this might be a good moment to show that a unison isn't wrong. So I've actually brought the alto down to the D. Now, one unison, it's a get out of jail card. You don't want to be doing it all the time. If a unison, here's a good benchmark for you. If a unison were to get you out of trouble of having consecutives, it's fine. And in particular, we still have all the 3 notes of the triad. So that's not such a bad deal. Another option is that you could actually have a unison on that melody note of the G. That would be okay as well. Now, are there any other approaches? Well, we can try another way. Let's think of another option, because it's good to explore these options. And I know this makes it a long, boring video, but if you can just hang with me for a bit, you can really learn. Let's imagine we put the tenor down here. Do you see how I've now kind of got a better approach? I was having a little bit of a problem. Let's put that down there. I was having a little bit of problem with this first inversion chord, whereas now, you never know. Sometimes you've just got to try a different approach. It's a really good thing to explore, because the more you're used to seeing where you might be running into trouble and the voices aren't moving very smoothly, well, look at that. That's great. You see, I was worried initially maybe that the tenor might be a bit low here and we might get into trouble, but look at that compared to our other option. That is fantastic. Those voices, that alto just staying in the same voice, staying on the same note, is really helping. And we're not getting any conflict with the thirds in the chords. So that's the smoother option. So there is the better option. So do you see how we started off? We weren't quite sure what was the best way to go, so we tried something. But then as we saw, oh gosh, I have to sort of shift these voices around to avoid doubling the third down here. If you see too much leaping, try another approach. It really helps. Okay, bear with me. It's a boring process, the old 4-part harmony, but this is what you have to practice doing. All right, next chord. Is the third there? Nope, we're going to put it in. All right, so if you put it in, you can't put another one in. All right, what about the tenor? Where will we stick the tenor? I think this is an opportunity to get my tenor high, because leaping a fourth's fine, but nothing else is leaping particularly. So here's a chance maybe to reset my tenor voice to get myself up a bit higher to counteract any further movement. So that's all right. Now we'll go back and we'll check consecutives in a minute. But I can tell we're looking pretty good because of all of the smooth movement. So all well. Next chord is the third there. Yes, this is chord 4 in first inversion, and there's the E flat in the bass. Right, so the fourth chord, the E flat is the third of the chord, and that's in the bass voice. So we don't want to double the E flat. Now I've got an E flat here. Where's the alto going to go? We might have to see if we can step up to the G. Now that's okay. What is wrong with these stems today? I think this harmony has a life of its own. These notes are rebelling against me. All right, so I've have a leap from the E flat up to the G. Now, this wouldn't be a right note, but imagine if the chord was a different chord and I had to leap up to the A. That would be a crossing over voices and would be illegal. But to come up to the same note like that, that's... So when I say the same note, I mean the same note as where the soprano was. Crossing over voices, by the way, is if you leap a voice further beyond where the other voice was. So you see how the alto is leaping higher than where the soprano was? That is crossing over voices. That's why I say you've got to be very careful when you're leaping. Leaping is a disaster if you don't control it properly. Right, I had one little strategic leap and it's helping me move smoothly through the other chords. All right, now we have chord 5. All right, we better be careful here. So what are we going to do now? Let's do the alto first. So we need to, is the third there? No, we have to put the third in. So I think if we have a nice step, oops, now wasn't that very silly? Wrong type of voice. I want to get all the stems right. I need the sharp. Here we go. There it is. All right, so we've got the third of the chord. That's moving nicely. We will need to check for consecutives with this chord, but I think we're looking good. Now what are we going to do for the tenor? I think we could move the tenor down to the 5th. That's okay. We don't have more than an octave between the 3 upper voices, so that's all good. We'll check for consecutives in a minute. I'll just finish this one. So we've got chord 1 in first inversion. So I think soprano could... Oops. Now, that's the second time I've done that. So you should scold me. You can scold me in the comments. Now, B flat, first inversion. So I think... I'll see how I go here because the tenor... I don't know. I've got an octave there. We could try moving up to the D, particularly since the soprano is moving the same note. So we've got sort of oblique motion. So again, using another leap of a fourth. By the way, you can have more than an octave between the tenor and the bass, but you can't have more than an octave between the tenor and the alto and the soprano. All right, we're nearly there. You can see what a tedious job it is. So, into the cadence. Is the third there? No, we have chord 4. The third of the chord is E flat. Now let's see if we can pop that into the alto, because that seems to be the smoothest way to go. Although we may change our mind. In fact, I think I'm changing my mind already. Now let me, oops, wrong voice. Let me put this in. I'm about to make a mistake, and I wonder if you can see the mistake. All right, I've made a mistake here. Can you see the mistake? Now, I should put some thinking music on while you try and figure that out, but I'll just sit here and talk. All right, you've got You got another few seconds. Can you see the mistake? Right, I'm going to show you how to find out that there's a mistake. Here's how we check for consecutives, because we have to check for consecutive fifths and octaves in any voice anywhere throughout the whole harmony. I'll go back and show you how to do that a little bit later on. But all right, let's try it. I think we got something dodgy going on here. So D to C. So soprano moves down a second, alto moves down a third, tenor moves down a second, and the bass moves up a second. Were any two of those voices the same? I'll say it again. Soprano moves down a second, the alto moves down a third, the tenor moves down a second, and the bass moves up a second. Were any two of them the same? The answer is yes. The tenor and the soprano move the same way. They both step down a note. So if two voices move the same, any two voices move the same way, then you have to check for consecutives. You can see I'm getting all excited about it. Calm down, John. It's not that exciting. So, but we do have a problem. So the tenor up to the soprano, D up to D, that's an 8. So we've got D to D and C to C. That is consecutive octaves. That is wrong, which means we are in big trouble. So I'm going to have to move the tenor up to the E flat, and I'm going to have to keep the alto. What went wrong? Oh, hang on, I know, it's in the wrong voice. Now, we're going to have to move the alto up to the G. Why have I got a natural sign there? We'll just get rid of that because that just looks really dumb. There we go. Go on. And what is going on with these stems today? They're driving me crazy. Let's try it now and see if we're in trouble. You ready? Down a second. So soprano goes down a second. The alto stays the same. The tenor goes up a second, and the bass goes up a second. Were any two of them the same? Yes. The tenor voice stepped up a second and the bass voice stepped up a second. They both moved the same way. Well, what is the interval distance between them? If it's a fifth or an octave, we're in trouble. But if it's not, if it's a third or a sixth, it's okay. So let's have a look. We have B flat up to D, and then we have C up to E flat. So they're both a third apart. So we're fine. That's all okay. All right, now I'll move. See if I can move quickly here. Otherwise, you'll all be asleep. And fair enough, because it is really a very long, tedious job. So you've got to be very methodical about doing this because you don't want to be going back and having to repeat stuff. All right, so you can see there. Now let's do a quick check. Up a second, the same. Up a second, down a fifth. Were any two of them the same? Yes, soprano and tenor were the same. So F sharp to A is a third, G to B flat is a third, so we're okay. Next chord, down a third, same, up a third. Any two of them the same? No, so we're fine. Next two chords, soprano, same, alto, up a second, tenor, up a fourth, and bass, up a second. Any two of them the same? Yes, bass and alto, and they're a third apart, so we're fine. All right, soprano, up a fourth, alto up a third, tenor stays the same, and bass up a third. Any two of them the same? Yes. Bass and alto moved the same way. They both stepped up a third, and they are a third apart, C to E flat. So we're all good. Next two chords, C to D. Soprano goes up a second, alto goes down a second, tenor goes down a third, and bass goes down a second. Were any two of them the same? Yes. The E flat to the G. Both step down a second. So bass to alto, E flat to G is a third apart. So we're fine. And then we've checked the rest. Okay, so there's the game, and it's all to do with checking. Now, let me finish this quickly. I'll see how good I can be. The third is there, so we don't really want another one. I think we might just go there, go there. Okay, I'm kind of going fast now because I'm too bored. Is the third there? Whoa, I've doubled the third. Hang on. Down to there, and then we can go up. I think that'll be fine. There's 2 C's in that chord. All right, let me see if I can finish this off. How are we going? Oh, I've got the fifth in the soprano. So, oh yes. Oh, we need the third, so that can probably come down to the third. All right. Sorry, I'm kind of doing this fast so that you don't fall asleep on me. All right, starting off here, the third is there, so we could go there. We could make use of the unison because I think this is going to go quite smoothly. And then this brings us down to, whoops, sorry, there's some crazy things going on here. And so in my perfect cadence here, I've got the leading note should rise to the scale, but because it's an inner voice, we can let that drop down to, oops, the 5th of the chord. Okay, so, oh, these wretched stems, they're driving me nuts. Okay, so down a third, same, up a third, we're good. None of them were the same. Up a fourth, same, down a second, up a fourth. Now we checked that before, didn't we? Because the bass voice is moving the same as the soprano, but they are a 1/6 apart. So we've already checked that one. All right, same, up a third, down a third, we're good. Down a third, down a second, up a second. So alto and tenor moving the same way. They both step down a second and they're a third apart, E flat to G, that's a third. All right, final one, down a second, down a third, down a third, down a fifth. And so tenor and alto moved the same way, so D to F sharp is a third. So we're good. So there it is. Okay, there's a few points to remember. You need to watch out for diminished or augmented intervals. So you need to be very careful. Look, imagine, I'm just going to do something wrong here just quickly to show you. Imagine I had the third there, right, in the alto voice. And then I'm going from the E flat to the F sharp. That's an augmented second. So that's wrong. So you've got to be very careful. Now, I was aware of that when I was doing it, and so I was careful not to have the E flat there so that I'd be leaping from the E flat to the F sharp. Here's all the very dodgy intervals in a minor scale. So when you raise the 7th note, these are the creepy intervals you need to watch out for. So the 2nd note to the 6th, 3rd to the 7th. So in G minor, so A to the E flat, okay, that's a diminished 5th. The 3 to 7, so B flat to F sharp, that's an augmented 5th. 4 to 7, that's C to F sharp. So that's, C to F sharp. Yeah, so that's augmented 4th, and then of course we've got the augmented 2nd. So you need to be very careful with that. Again, always check to raise the 7th note, and make sure you don't use chord 2 in a minor key. For 4th grade harmony, you don't have to learn how to use chord 2. And make sure you've checked for consecutives, and make sure you haven't doubled the 3rd, and make sure you don't have any voices more than an octave apart from tenor to alto and alto to tenor, and make sure you haven't crossed over any voices, and you should be good. Why don't we hear it?